In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, where empires are forged and species are judged, humanity was about to receive its sentence. For decades, we had been the newcomers, the primitives, the children who played with fire. Today, the elder races had gathered to put us in our place. Permanently. But they judged our history without understanding our spirit. They measured our technology without knowing our secrets. What happens when the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy declare your entire species inferior? When they demand your surrender, what is the true meaning of the one cryptic message you send in return? And what terrifying silence follows, right before the stars themselves begin to scream? The declaration of inferiority. Before we begin this chapter of galactic history, take a moment to subscribe and join our fleet. Your support makes these stories possible. All right, let's begin the story. Then, the Grand Hall of the Galactic Concord glowed with the cold, silver light of a captured star. Thousands of alien delegates filled the air with the low hum of 100 different languages, their voices weaving a tapestry of arrogance and certainty. Banners of countless species, some dating back millennia, hung like silent judgments from floating platforms. Today was the day they would finally put the humans in their place. At the very center, on a high platform of crystal glass that hovered over a manufactured abyss, the High Consul of the Concord, a Xylosian named Forlag, raised his primary clawed hand for silence. His voice, amplified by the hall's acoustics, echoed with a chilling finality. Today, he declared, his voice dripping with condescension, we address the human question, and today we answer it. The Concord has deliberated. The verdict is reached. He paused for dramatic effect. We declare the species known as humans officially. I-N-F-E-R-I-O-R. The crowd erupted. It wasn't just laughter. It was a symphony of derision. The metallic wings of the Cygnian delegation clapped together in sharp, percussive beats. The armored tails of the Cthar warriors thumped against the ground in a predatory rhythm. The shimmering, ethereal forms of the Lumina pulsed with colors of amusement. Holographic images of Earth ignited in the air, showing bustling cities, deep blue oceans, and the vibrant world that had dared to reach for the stars. They are emotional, said the consul, his forked tongue flicking out. Their art is chaotic. Their music is dissonant. Their politics are a litany of self-destruction. He gestured to a hologram of a Terran soldier, standing proud beside a simple blue and white flag. They are fragile, impulsive, unpredictable. And worst of all, they are dangerous. Not because they are strong, but because they believe in something as illogical, as primitive, as foolish as hope. The laughter grew louder, a rolling tide of scorn. A delegate from the wealthy trade guilds threw glittering coins of solidified energy at the projection, as if tossing scraps to a zoo animal. The chamber thundered with the sound of 1,000 species united in their contempt. In the center of that storm stood one quiet figure, Captain Marcus Thorne, the human envoy. He wore a dark, simple uniform with a single silver star on his shoulder. It was clean, pressed, but utterly plain amidst the opulent robes and shimmering armor of the aliens. His face was a mask of calm, his posture ramrod straight. His eyes, a piercing shade of blue, were locked on the High Consul. He did not speak. He did not move. But the silence around him grew heavy, an invisible shield against the torrent of abuse. The nearest alien, a Gorn delegate with skin like cracked rock, lumbered closer and smirked. Do you understand, little human? The Concord has spoken. Your time among the stars is over. You must obey. Captain Thorne slowly turned his head, his gaze shifting from the consul to the Gorn. His voice, when it came, was low, but so steady it seemed to absorb the noise around it. Understood, he said. He let the word hang in the air for a single, charged heartbeat. Earth hears you. Then he turned, his back straight, and walked toward the exit without another word. His footsteps were measured, deliberate. Not the scuttling of a defeated servant, but the determined stride of a man with a purpose. Some laughed at his swift, silent departure. Others whispered, "Look how humble they are," one delegate said with a gurgling chuckle. "They know their place." He accepts his sentence. Another added, its gelatinous form quivering with amusement. None of them noticed the faint, hidden smile at the corner of Marcus Thorne's lips. It was a smile that promised fire. Far above the Concord world, Massive alien dreadnoughts drifted like silver clouds in orbit. Deep within one of them, a small, heavily encrypted human vessel, the Echo, officers watched the live broadcast in stunned silence. Their screens showed the laughing aliens, the consul's arrogant speech, Captain Thorne's silent retreat. Commander Eva Rostova, a veteran with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen the fall of colonies and the birth of stars, leaned forward, her knuckles white. "He delivered the message," she said, her voice a low growl. The young ensign at the communications console turned, his face pale with confusion. "Message, Commander?" All he said was. Rostova nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on Thorne's retreating form on the screen. When Thorne said, "Earth hears you." That was it. That was the signal. The bridge of the Echo went silent. Every officer, every crew member, suddenly understood. On the other side of the galaxy, in a quiet, forgotten system far from Concord patrols, Earth's hidden fleet began to stir. Massive black ships, shaped like arrowheads and forged in secret, rested under the shadow of a dead moon. They had been dormant for decades, waiting for a single, simple phrase to awaken them. And that phrase had just been spoken. Inside the Concord chamber, the celebration continued. The High Consul poured glowing, effervescent wine into his cup and raised it high. "Finally," he said proudly, "true peace will come. The humans will obey their quarantine, and the Concord will rule without challenge." But deep beneath the marble floors of the Capitol, in the sublevel intelligence hubs, analysts began to notice something strange. "Sir," a junior analyst reported to his superior, his multiple eyes blinking nervously. "The human comms network, it's gone dark." "What do you mean, gone dark?" "I mean nothing. No civilian broadcasts. No trade communications. No diplomatic channels. It's as if their entire civilization just switched off." The report made its way up the chain of command, a whisper of unease in the halls of power. A nervous aide eventually ran to the High Consul, holding a holographic tablet. "Sir, all communication with the human systems has stopped. Completely." The consul waved his hand lazily. "Perhaps they are sulking in their corner. A childish tantrum. Ignore it. They will come groveling soon enough." Yet deep within his ancient mind, a small, cold seed of doubt began to form. He had studied human history once. He remembered the endless, brutal wars, the bloody revolutions, the stubborn, illogical resistance against impossible odds. A species that had lost everything more than once, but always rose from the ashes. Stronger, angrier. He looked at the hologram of Earth, still floating before him, a serene blue marble. "Inferior," he whispered to himself, almost as if trying to believe it. Meanwhile, Captain Thorne stepped into his shuttle. His reflection, a hard-faced man with weary eyes, flickered against the viewport. His assistant for the mission, a young, sympathetic Lorian diplomat who had always treated him with a quiet respect the other species lacked, whispered, "You are not angry." Thorne smiled faintly. It was a true smile this time, but it held no warmth. "Anger is a waste of energy, my friend. We have been insulted before. We have been underestimated before. And we have learned to be patient." He looked out into the starfield, the endless black ocean beyond. "But tell your consul something," he said, turning to the Lorian. "If he ever asks where I went." The alien tilted its head, its large, liquid eyes full of curiosity. "What should I tell him?" Marcus Thorne's eyes gleamed with a cold fire that seemed to burn away the weariness. "Tell him Earth is listening." The shuttle doors closed. The engines hummed softly, a sound no louder than a breath. The small craft vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a world still echoing with arrogant laughter. Laughter that would soon turn to screams. Far across the void, in the command bunker buried a mile deep beneath Earth's orbital defense network, red lights began to flicker to life. The ancient AI codenamed Cassandra, detected the encrypted, single-phrase signal from Thorne's shuttle. Systems long dormant powered up, one by one. Ancient satellites, disguised as space debris, turned their silent, multi-spectrum eyes toward the distant stars. And the hidden, terrible weapons of humanity came to life again. In that moment, on a quiet planet no one in the galaxy considered important anymore, the people of Earth remembered. They remembered every insult, every broken treaty, every condescending word that called them weak. And as the first activation lights glowed red in the clouds above their recovering cities, Earth whispered back to the galaxy. "We heard you." The Galactic Concord waited. They expected an apology, a plea for mercy, a formal acceptance of their quarantine. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into a month. And still, there was nothing. Only a profound, unsettling silence. At first, the silence was amusing. The delegates called it a human tantrum. They joked that the primitives were sulking in their corner, their fragile pride wounded. But as the weeks stretched on, the laughter began to fade. Disturbing reports started trickling in from the border worlds. Human colonies, which were supposed to be preparing for Concord oversight, had simply stopped responding. Trade convoys arriving at their systems found only automated messages stating, "This territory is under sovereign human control. All non-human vessels are to maintain a distance of 1 light minute. No further communication will be forthcoming." Outposts that once welcomed alien visitors were now locked down. Their beacons offline, their stations dark. Grand Admiral Zorgan of the Concord Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Majesty. He scowled at the holographic map flickering before him. It makes no sense. An entire species cannot simply unplug from the galactic network. His aide, a nervous creature with multiple blinking eyes, wrung its 6 hands. "Perhaps they are reorganizing, Grand Admiral. Or hiding something." Zorgan's eyes narrowed to slits. Hiding what? They don't have the technology for stealth on a galactic scale. Their energy signatures are crude, their drives inefficient. He paused, a cold thought slithering into his mind. Unless what we've seen is not their real technology. Far away, in the Sol system, Earth's skies glowed faintly red. Ancient war stations, orbital platforms from humanity's own brutal unification wars, came to life. The network that had slept for over a century now hummed with a silent, deadly purpose. Deep beneath the crust of Luna, in Sanctuary Base, a bunker shielded by a kilometer of solid rock, fusion reactors awakened. They sent floods of power to systems officially marked as decommissioned in all reports to the Concord. Inside the command vault, Commander Eva Rostova stood before a giant, wraparound screen. The AI core, Cassandra, projected streams of data in pale blue light. "Signal confirmed," said the AI, its voice a calm, synthesized contralto. "Operation Horizon Dawn initiated. All sleeper fleets are now awake." Rostova nodded, her voice low and steady. "All units to standby. Silent formation protocols. No transmissions. No energy signatures above baseline. Let them wonder. Let them worry." The humans didn't broadcast threats. They didn't respond to alien hails or frantic demands for explanation. They simply vanished into a strategic silence that felt heavier and more menacing than any declaration of war. Back at the Concord capital, confusion festered into unease. Unease curdled into anger. Counselor Drixa slammed her fist on the great table. "This is unacceptable. We must force a response." High Consul Forlag rounded on her. "And how do you propose we do that? We cannot force communication from a species that chooses not to speak." His tone was sharp, but the slight tremble in his clawed hands betrayed his own anxiety. Another delegate spoke up. "Perhaps we should send a peace envoy." A gesture of. The room erupted into weak, nervous laughter. "Peace," one barked. "Why make peace with those who are already broken?" But a few of the older delegates, the ones who had read the restricted files on humanity's first contact, exchanged worried glances. They had seen the simulations. They had read the psychological profiles. They had seen how quickly humans learned, how they adapted to new worlds, new weapons, new enemies with a terrifying blend of logic and brutality. Meanwhile, in the dark space between systems, Terran ships drifted like shadows. No lights, no transmissions. Their black, angular hulls were coated in a material that absorbed the starlight, rendering them invisible to all but the most sensitive, close-range scanners. They listened. They watched. They recorded every panicked Concord broadcast. On board the flagship, the UES Vengeance, Captain Marcus Thorne stood before the viewport, watching distant suns flicker like dying embers. "They think our silence means surrender," he said to his bridge crew. "Let them." His tactical officer, a young woman named Anya, looked up. "Sir, what's our next move?" Thorne looked down at the hollow map of the galaxy. Countless stars, with dozens now marked in crimson. We wait. The longer we wait, the more they will underestimate us. The angrier they will get. And angry commanders make mistakes. Isn't that risky, sir? She asked. They might launch a full-scale attack. Thorne smiled faintly. It was a predator's smile. That's what we're counting on. On the Concord world, Grand Admiral Zorgan's patience snapped. He would not be made a fool of by these silent primitives. If the humans won't answer our calls, he announced to his command staff, we will knock on their door. Loudly, he dispatched Patrol Fleet 9 to the edge of the Sol system. A formidable force, 20 heavy cruisers and 5 capital-class dreadnoughts. They jumped into hyperspace, expecting to find a primitive defense line, maybe a few outdated satellites guarding the path to Earth. But when they exited hyperspace near the swirling clouds of Jupiter, the space around them was empty. Eerily, unnaturally empty. Scanners online. Full spectrum sweep. The fleet commander, Captain Val, ordered from the bridge of his cruiser. The scanners flickered and returned only static. Something's wrong, muttered his first officer. The gas giant, we're not getting clear readings. There's some kind of interference. Then, one by one, their ship lights dimmed. The communication channels between the ships filled with a low, whispering hiss. And in the swirling, dark red storms of Jupiter's orbit, something massive moved. It was blacker than the void itself. No engine lights. No energy signature. No transponder beacon. Just an enormous, silent silhouette in the shape of a colossal arrowhead. From the bridge of the UES Vengeance, Thorne watched. His voice was calm. They've arrived. Cassandra, begin passive scan and record. I want their faces when they realize their mistake. Acknowledged, the AI responded instantly. Beginning passive scan. Data is instructive. The alien fleet began to panic. Contact unknown. Massive object detected, shouted the comms officer on Captain Val's bridge. Is it a moon? It wasn't on our charts. The object began to move. Slow. Deliberate. Its obsidian black surface opened like the eye of a sleeping god, revealing rows upon rows of weapon arrays that pulsed with a faint, crimson light. Energy readings on the Concord ships spiked across every spectrum. Raise shields. Prepare weapons. Fire at will. Captain Val screamed. But it was too late. A silent, brilliant flash of white light consumed the lead cruiser. It wasn't an explosion. The ship just ceased to exist. Not even dust remained. Another flash. And another. In less than 45 seconds, the entire front line of his fleet vanished. Erased from reality, leaving no debris, no radiation, no wreckage. From the safety of distant observation, Thorne whispered, they declared us inferior. His voice carried no anger. Only quiet, chilling satisfaction. Now they will see what true silence means. The UES Vengeance drifted back into the darkness, leaving no trace. Hours later, on the Concord world, alarms blared across every comm channel. We've lost all contact with Patrol Fleet 9, an aide shouted in the Grand Hall. The High Consul stood frozen, his wine glass slipping from his trembling claw and shattering on the crystal floor. Silence once again filled the Grand Hall. But this time, no one laughed. No one mocked. The galaxy's self-proclaimed rulers stared at each other, realizing, far too late, that the silence of humanity was not weakness. It was the sound of a predator awakening. In less than 45 seconds, the entire front line of his fleet vanished, erased from reality, leaving no debris, no radiation, no wreckage. From the safety of distant observation, Thorne whispered, they declared us inferior. His voice carried no anger. Only quiet, chilling satisfaction. Now they will see what true silence means. The UES Vengeance drifted back into the darkness, leaving no trace. Hours later, on the Concord world, alarms blared across every comm channel. We've lost all contact with Patrol Fleet 9, an aide shouted in the Grand Hall. The High Consul stood frozen, his wine glass slipping from his trembling claw and shattering on the crystal floor. Silence once again filled the Grand Hall. But this time, no one laughed. No one mocked. The galaxy's self-proclaimed rulers stared at each other, realizing, far too late, that the silence of humanity was not weakness. It was the sound of a predator awakening. In less than 45 seconds, the entire front line of his fleet vanished, erased from reality, leaving no debris, no radiation, no wreckage. From the safety of distant observation, Thorn whispered, "They declared us inferior." His voice carried no anger, only quiet, chilling satisfaction. Now they will see what true silence means. The UES Vengeance drifted back into the darkness, leaving no trace. Hours later, on the Concord world, alarms blared across every comm channel. "We've lost all contact with Patrol Fleet 9, an aide shouted in the Grand Hall. The High Consul stood frozen, his wine glass slipping from his trembling claw and shattering on the crystal floor. Silence once again filled the Grand Hall. But this time, no one laughed. No one mocked. The galaxy's self-proclaimed rulers stared at each other, realizing, far too late, that the silence of humanity was not weakness. It was the sound of a predator awakening. In less than 45 seconds, the entire front line of his fleet vanished, erased from reality, leaving no debris, no radiation, no wreckage. From the safety of distant observation, Thorn whispered, "They declared us inferior." His voice carried no anger, only quiet, chilling satisfaction. Now they will see what true silence means. The UES Vengeance drifted back into the darkness, leaving no trace. Hours later, on the Concord world, alarms blared across every comm channel. "We've lost all contact with Patrol Fleet 9, an aide shouted in the Grand Hall. The High Consul stood frozen, his wine glass slipping from his trembling claw and shattering on the crystal floor. Silence once again filled the Grand Hall. But this time, no one laughed. No one mocked. The galaxy's self-proclaimed rulers stared at each other, realizing, far too late, that the silence of humanity was not weakness. It was the sound of a predator awakening. In less than 45 seconds, the entire front line of his fleet vanished, erased from reality, leaving no debris, no radiation, no wreckage. From the safety of distant observation, Thorn whispered, "They declared us inferior." His voice carried no anger, only quiet, chilling satisfaction. Now they will see what true silence means. The UES Vengeance drifted back into the darkness, leaving no trace. Hours later, on the Concord world, alarms blared across every comm channel. "We've lost all contact with Patrol Fleet 9, an aide shouted in the Grand Hall. The High Consul stood frozen, his wine glass slipping from his trembling claw and shattering on the crystal floor. Silence once again filled the Grand Hall. But this time, no one laughed. No one mocked. The galaxy's self-proclaimed rulers stared at each other, realizing, far too late, that the silence of humanity was not weakness. It was the sound of a predator awakening.